And then for 30, going to 33. We've got halfway is number 32. And halfway between that is 31. For 33 to 35, a super simple one. It's a halfway. And the same thing for the next one. 35, 37, halfway. And then our final key, or our second last key, sorry, from 37 to 43. You're going to half, quarters, and then slow out. So 37, 38, 39 is our breakdown. 40, 41, and 42. Again, just putting those loops on there just to indicate halves and quarters. And our timing charts are done. So we don't need a timing chart on number 43 because that's our final key. We're not going anywhere from there. We're finished now. All right, so that's finishing up our timing charts now. So let's go back and start to drop in our major breakdowns. Just drawing back into flipping order here. So we'll need drawing number 1 and number 7. You can take this off now. You don't really need it. So now working just strictly with our key positions. So our halfway between these two is number 5. That's our first in between that we'll do. 5 is our halfway breakdown. We do a line underneath it. We find where our key position is. Actually, I'm going to flip this over. So our key position is up here. Low position is down here. Our path of action arcs out like this. So we find our halfway position right there. And just grab my toonie guide. Where did it go? There it is. So that's my halfway between 1 and 7. So I can now take 1 and 5 off and set them off to the side. Keep number 7 down. Go to my next key, which is 13. And between 7 and 13 is number 9. Same thing. Find my low point down here, which is here, and my high point, which is up here. My path of action is going to be my arc. Now remember, this is where my ball is going to stretch. So just as a guide, I'm going to throw my circle on here, trace it off, just as a guide for, whoops, it's actually positioned wrong. But what I can do is if I want to do the opposite stretch of what I had on my squish position, I can take this drawing here and line it up with this one, right over top of the center, and get it so that it matches the arc. Okay, the major axis line on the arc is going on a slight angle there because it's going up and over, so that way I can trace it off now. Take my 7 and 13, put them back on the pegs with number 9 on top. I can now flip those two drawings. to make sure that the action is doing what I want and that it's spaced properly. So now remember that number 8 is the halfway position between this one here and this one here. So that's the one that I'm going to turn into a circle halfway in between the two of them as it goes from squished, recovering back to a circle, and then stretching out. And then as I stretch from this position here back to the circle, I'm going to recover it back over the next 2 drawings, right? 2 or 3 drawings actually. 1, 2, 3 drawings. So it's going to gently recover back from its stretch, not immediately back to a circle, but it'll recover slowly back, so I've got it in between that properly. All right. So now going from number 13 into 19, my halfway position here is number 17. Now here's where I'm going to let you play a little bit, and you can do this back on number 5 if you want to. Number 5 I made a circle. I'm going to let you play, and if you want to, you can make this a stretch position. I'll leave that option up to you. But again, just the same as our suction cup drawing, it will cause the action to change. So by putting a stretch position in here, if I'm going from this position here down to this position on that arc, if I put a stretch position in here, that means that the ball is accelerating. It's pulling itself towards its destination. It's deforming itself, which is okay, if that's what you want to say. Right? So what we have to keep in mind here is that our ultimate goal here is going to be to attach a second ball to this and then put a tail on it. So essentially we're going to have an animal jumping in and losing its energy and coming to a stop. So therefore we could turn this into a cat if we wanted to, or a mouse or something like that, depending on what kind of tail you put it onto it and what proportion you make the head. We could turn this into any kind of an animal we want. It could be a rabbit, it could be a deer, I don't know. It's up to you. So depending on what you want to do, if you want to cause this to look like the character is stretching into the down position, make it a stretch position, right? And do the same thing on number 5 when it comes down. Stretch it out on that one as well. Right? So ultimately, let's say I want to change this into a rat. What I could do is I could have my primary circle here like this. I'm just going to draw this lightly at first. And then I'm going to put his head on here like this. So it's stretched out like that. And his tail is going to follow the path of action from where the original was. So I could draw the tail on curling over like this. There's his tail. And I just draw him in. His little feet out in front of him. There's his feet trailing in behind. Okay. So it's simply transforming it in the circle at the high point. It'll be a rat as well at the high point, but now he's just coming down, stretching out to impact on the ground when he touches down. Okay? So you can do that if you want to, but keep visually in mind that this is ultimately what it's going to become. Right? So we're just drawing this, but it will turn into this. That's the thought process that we have to have. That's what you do with all your animation. Okay, we start off with the basic shapes, and then we add on to it to create whatever kind of character we want to. But we have to understand how those basic shapes are moving first. Okay, so let's go on to our next in-between, which will be from 19 to 23, and that's going to be number 20. Once again, this is my ball bouncing up. 20 is my number. Break down. So I'm going from this position, or sorry, low position down here and squished to this position up here. There's my arc. So I'm going to put a little bit of a stretch on it, but not a lot. I don't want to deform it too much. Because once again, it's losing its energy. This is 19 to 23. Once again, if I was to go back to my rat character, this drawing would have the second ball here. I'd squish the ball a little bit, compress it on top of it, because he's forcing his body up in this direction here, so his head's just going to squish down just a little bit. He's looking up in the direction. I'm going to pull the nose so that it trails, his ears will trail. But he's pushing off on the ground. From the low point that was down here, there's my surface. There's his feet pushing off and his tail. You might want to put his arms straight out like this, Superman-like. Stretching to go up. So again, thinking in terms of what's going to happen in your drawings will affect the action and the positioning and the shape of your ball. So just a couple more in-betweens here, and then we'll flip it and see what it looks like. Oops. So now we're going from 23 to 27. So our next in-between is number 26. So again, you decide if you're going to stretch or not. From this position to this position here. The more you stretch it, the more cartoony it's going to look. I'm going from 27. This is my little hop now. 28 is my halfway position. Or sorry, yeah, 28. Oops. So I've just got a little movement from here to here. Pretty much keep it as my circle. Throw my template down. Just keep my volumes consistent. Next in between is between 30 and 33. It should be 32. Once again, as we lose the energy, the distances get smaller and smaller. So that just means it's not traveling as far. And the number of in-betweens that we drop in here will determine the speed that we have it moving at. The more in-betweens we put in here, the slower it's going to go. The less in-betweens we put in here, the faster it's going to go. So even though you've got a small distance, you can still have something moving fairly slow or fast. Again, it depends on the action that you're doing. You have to understand what that action is. And so here we have a simple cause and effect that's being taken place, in that it's, in this instance here, it's a ball. If we think further ahead that it's the rat jumping over this distance here, then we know whether it's going to, because it's losing energy, it's not going to have as many drawings in it. So this is drawing number 32. And then we get into the very small ones where these are all just straight halfway in-betweens. So we're going to leave these ones out on this last part here, because what I want to do is I just want to drop an in-between on our roll. So 35, 37, here's our roll part from 37 through to 43. I want to put an in-between in here for number 39, just to fill in that space. So once again, I look at my start and stop position. Start position's there, stop position's right there. I find my halfway point, which is right there. This is where having a light table is going to come in handy to be able to accurately see whether or not you've got the right position for your ball. So I want you to be as accurate as you possibly can. Don't make the ball jump up and down or jitter or anything like that. You have to be really, really accurate here. Get that action to move properly. So you can see here, with my hand in this position, it's difficult for you to see that flipping action unless I really open up here. So this is where I would default to my left hand to flip the action, rotate my disc, and then you can see it clearly over on that side. Alright, so there's all my primary keys and my major in-betweens. So I'm just going to put these in order from bottom to top now. So now I've got my nice thick stack of drawings here. And I fan them out and drop them down. Then you can start to see the fill-in, the action as it moves across. And it becomes a little bit more clearer now what's actually taking place, especially with those stretches in there. So again, if I go back and I change that number 5 into a stretch position, which would be more appropriate for what I've done for the other parts there, it would make more sense. Otherwise it seems like the one action that's out of place there, to have that as a circle and then all of a sudden it stretches on the drawings after that, doesn't quite make sense. So I would go back and change number 5 here. Just completely scrap the drawing and redraw it. And again, this is the nice thing about your animation, is that at any given point in time you can go in and modify something. So it's not like you're locked in. Don't feel like, you know, you do a drawing and just because the drawing is bad, all of a sudden you're stuck with it forever. Okay? If I don't like that drawing right there, it's gone. And this is the reason why I said buy cheap paper instead of the really expensive animation paper, is because that's what happens to your drawing. So if your animation paper costs you 5 cents, you just threw away 5 cents. Okay? Ultimately, you're going to end up with 43 drawings here. What was it, 46 or something? What was the final number on this? 43? Yes. So 43 times 5, quick do your math, that's a little over $2. $2.15. May not seem like a lot, but yeah, it's a coffee and maybe half of a donut. You're just going to throw those out. They're just going to be garbage. Once we're finished this assignment, you understand the principles of it, those drawings are going to go into the garbage. Right? So don't think you're going to hang on to them for the rest of your life, unless you want to be super sentimental about it and say, here's one of the first pieces of animation I ever did, bouncing ball. I remember that. It was so beautiful, man. It depends on what you, I mean, you may turn it into something really cool. Like if you decide to turn it into a little character, it could turn into a cool little piece of animation that you might want to hang on to. But otherwise, I mean, ultimately, yeah, it's going in the garbage eventually. 20 years from now, you're not going to hang on to your bouncing ball assignment. It'll go into recycling and it's gone. Right? So, think of it in those terms, that these are disposable. Don't go for the super expensive paper. Go for the cheapo stuff at first. And then once you start to get into the more refined stuff that we'll be into in second semester, then you can go with the more expensive paper.